Kumara Hata, which is not far from Navadvip. And later, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the birthplace of his Diksha Guru, Ishwara Puri, and Mahaprabhu took a palmful of dust or earth from Kumarahata, and others following his example also took dust or earth from Kumarahata, and many thousands of followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took dirt or dust from Kumarahata. Mahaprabhu put in a cloth, kept the cloth with him, tied up in a little knot at the top, and daily he would take a little, something like what Madhavendra Puri did with the pot of milk that he received from Krishna. So as a result of taking palmfuls of dust or dirt or earth from Kumarahata, gradually it made a big depression in the earth, and that big depression in the earth then became a lake or a pond. So a celebrated place at Kumarahata even today is Doba, or lake or pond at Kumarahata, as a result of Mahaprabhu's taking a palmful. Ishwara Puri should be understood in relation to Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri was a very important personality in our disciplic succession. Our disciplic succession is Brahma Madhva. Madhvacharya received instructions from Srila Vyasadeva, who was in the line of Krishna himself and Brahma. So in our line, Madhavendra Puri, the painting you see here, he had entered into the Paramahansa stage of sannyas quickly. Prabhupada has instructed, in traditionally, or according to scripture, there are 4 stages. At a certain point in time, an elderly householder would accept the sannyas order, and he would move out of his village and live somewhere in the forest outside the village. And his maintenance was people from the village would come and bring him alms, and that was his maintenance. That's Bahudak. And then comes Kutichak, they would stop that, and he would then go to the village and beg alms, Madhukari method, and then that was it with his involvement with the village. He'd go back to his forest residence and continue his sannyas austerities. And that's Kutichak. And then next is the Paribrajakachari. He would not stay by his village, but he would travel. And his maintenance was he would do Madhukari wherever he was. Commonly, such sannyasis would visit holy places. And people were very happy to receive a sannyasi and give him alms, and that was his maintenance. And then the 4th is the stage that Madhavendra Puri was in, and that is they wouldn't extend their cloth and householders' homes for Madhukari. Rather, they would accept alms if it was given to them, and otherwise they would fast. So Madhavendra Puri had that stage of sannyas, the Paramahansa stage of sannyas, and his program, his habit, commonly was to go to various holy places, doing observing fasting and observing his activities of chanting and studying, etc. And this painting is showing one of his visits was to Vrindavan. And specifically, if you look in the background, you can see Govardhan Hill along with the cow, and behind the cow is Govardhan Hill. So it was by the side of Govardhan Hill at Govindakund. And one village boy, pictured here, it was Krishna, but he didn't recognize. He brought him a pot of milk. And Madhavendra Puri, little exchange is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where the cowherd boy said, "The ladies of our village saw you sitting here. You have been fasting. They asked me to bring you some of this milk. It's milking time, so please accept this milk." And Madhavendra Puri said, "How do you know I was fasting?" And he said, "In our village," he didn't directly answer the question. He just said, "In our village, it is a policy that no one goes hungry. So please accept this pot of milk. I'll come back later to gather the pot. I have to go now. It's time for milking the cows." And just like that, he disappeared. Madhavendra Puri began drinking the milk. And as he was drinking the milk, he felt transcendental ecstasy crossing over his body. And he then started to meditate on who was this boy that gave this transcendental milk. And it came to him that this boy was none other than Krishna himself, and he felt very sad that he didn't recognize Krishna, and very ecstatic that he had been visited by Krishna. He finished the milk, he kept the pot, broke the pot into pieces, put the pieces in a cloth, and carried it around his waist, and every day took a little bit of the clay that made up the clay pot. Now the boy never came back to pick up the pot, and in his dream, it's described that he dozed off while he was chanting in the evening, and in his dream, he saw the same cowherd boy. The cowherd boy revealed that he's Gopal, and his deity form is just further south on the eastern side of Govardhan Hill. He identified where the deity had been placed for safety because of invading soldiers. And he said, "I've been waiting for you to finally come. Now you've come. I'd like you to resume my worship. In the morning, find some village people so you can gather me. I'm somewhere in the thick brush." He identified the place. And the dream broke. So in the morning, Madhavendra Puri, being a sannyasi of great stature, when he requested some villagers to help him, they were very happy. The deity was found, and a whole big festival took place where, because Madhavendra Puri knew the procedures for deity worship, and without the rest of that detail, because the focus, aside from the life of Madhavendra Puri, is his contribution, the dramatic contribution that he made to our disciplic succession. Here's what Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sri Madhavendra Puri is a desire tree of devotional service, and it is in him that the seed of devotional service first fructified. Now that seed of devotional service everyone has, but the seed of devotional service that's being referred to is the seed of spontaneous love. Because prior to Madhavendra Puri, the practice in Madhvacharya's line was regulative devotional service. And although Madhvacharya has at his central deity, Krishna deity, the Krishna deity was worshipped and is today worshipped as well in the Aishwarya feature. There's more to say, but Madhavendra Puri's, he wasn't a deity worshiper, but he was on the platform of spontaneous love. Specifically, that kind of love that the residents of Vrindavan have. Specifically, the mood of love of the gopis in a mood of separation. So it's described that he would recite again and again and again and again and again, and taste the rasa of the following verse: Aidina Dayadranatha he, Maturanatha Kadavalokyase, Hridayam Twad Alokakataram Daita Brahmyati Kim Karomyaham. Very celebrated verse, and he would say it again and again and again. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. And here's the Madhurya, or the mood of the gopis. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? Kim Karomyaham. What shall I do now? And he would recite it again and again and again and again. And he, Madhavendra Puri, became absorbed in the love of the residents of Vrindavan, specifically the love of the gopis in the mood of separation. Because of not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. What shall I do now? Prabhupada's commentary further says, the seed of devotional service next fructified in the form of Sri Ishwara Puri, and then the gardener himself, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, became the main trunk of the tree of devotional service. So Madhavendra Puri passed, he tasted, and he passed on the mood of Braja Prem, Gopi Braja Prem, Viraha Gopi Braja Prem, the love and separation of Vrindavan. He was immersed in it, he passed it on to Ishwara Puri, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received, of course he's the personality of Godhead, but at least in terms of Lila, he became the trunk of the tree of this particular kind of devotional service. And Mahaprabhu was very enthusiastic to distribute the fruits of this love of Godhead in the form of Braja Prem in the mood of separation from Krishna. As he became elder, his travels had to halt, but Ishwara Puri was constantly by his side serving Madhavendra Puri, although Ishwara Puri himself was a most exalted, very erudite taster and distributor of love of God, but it didn't have any challenge or conflict in his mood of loving service to Madhavendra Puri. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes like this: at the last stage of his life, Sri Madhavendra Puri became an invalid and was completely unable to move. And Ishwara Puri so completely engaged himself in his service that he personally cleaned up his stool and urine, always chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and reminding Sri Madhavendra Puri about the pastimes of Lord Krishna. In the last stage of his life, Ishwara Puri gave the best service among his disciples, Madhavendra Puri's disciples. Thus Madhavendra Puri became very pleased with him, blessed him, saying, my dear boy, I can only pray to Krishna that he will be pleased with you. And sure enough, he was. Thus, Ishwara Puri, by the grace of his spiritual master, Sri Madhavendra Puri, became a great devotee in the ocean of love of Godhead. And from that time on, Ishwara Puri became an ocean of love for Krishna. Now back to the story of Madhavendra Puri before he became very old and invalid. After receiving the Gopal deity and installing the Gopal deity and festivals for the Gopal deity, a year passed and he had a dream again, second dream. In the second dream, the same Gopal appeared in his dream saying, in my deity form, I'm still very hot. And if the summer season is coming, please make an arrangement for camphor and sandalwood to cool my body in the heat of the summer. Immediately, Madhavendra Puri, the very next morning after he woke up, he had entrusted the worship of his deity to his disciples, who he trained in deity worship. And off he went to go to Jagannath Puri to gather the required sandalwood and camphor. In the course of his travels, he didn't do the direct route. He went by way of Navadvip and Shantipur. This is before, of course, Mahaprabhu appeared. There he met Advaitacharya in Shantipur. Advaitacharya, being so inspired by Madhavendra Puri, he took Diksha from him. And so Ishwara Puri also later, like his spiritual master, was traveling to holy places throughout India. And one of the holy places he went to was Navadvip. When he reached Navadvip, you see in the painting to his right or to our left, that's a painting of Gadadhar Pandit. Gadadhar Pandit developed very swiftly a deep affection and attraction for Ishwara Puri. And because Gadadhar Pandit was very devotional and very scholarly, very kindly, Ishwara Puri was reciting every day some portion of his writing called Sri Krishna Lilamrita. And after some time, when they were walking along the side of the Ganges, Ishwara Puri saw a whole crowd of young men gathered around a young teacher, and he asked, "Who's that?" And he said, "That's Nimai Pandit." And Gadadhar was asked, "Can you introduce me to him? I've heard about him." So they went to where Nimai Pandit was giving his grammar classes to many students by the side of the Ganges. And after the introduction was made, series of steps took place that are very important in the Lila of Mahaprabhu to become the Diksha disciple of Ishwara Puri. Because he's a young Brahmin boy, he offered all the due respects to an elevated sannyasi. And after some exchanges, he invited Ishwara Puri to his home, indicating that his mother Sachi would be very happy to receive a sannyasi in their home. He agreed and accepted the invitation. And Nimai Pandit's mother, Sachi, prepared a nice meal, and it was served to Ishwara Puri. And this was a beginning of his exchange with Ishwara Puri. And one of the writings of Ishwara Puri found in Rupa Goswami's Padyavali. What's Padyavali? Padyavali is a collection of sayings or writings, his own and many other persons. So Rupa Goswami extracted one of the little passages from Krishna Lilamrita, which was Ishwara Puri's book. Here's the passage that he placed in Padyavali. Text number 62. This mango tree in Vrindavan is now overwhelmed by remembering you. It dances, moving its branches in the breeze. It sings in the form of these humming bees. It sheds tears in the form of these many drops of honey. Its hairs stand erect in ecstasy in the form of these new sprouts. Oh, Mukunda, as dear to me as my own life, why is this tree so filled with love for you? Who am I so hard-hearted that even your name will not enter my heart? So this is Braja Prem in the mood of dainya or humility, like the gopis, embodying that which Madhavendra Puri passed on to him. Ishwara Puri had the same mood, and it was captured in his writings of Sri Krishna Lilamrita. There's one other passage Rupa Goswami presents in Padyavali. May the cowherd boy, who is a festival of ecstatic bliss for the hearts of the fortunate creatures residing in the groves of Govardhan Hill, who is the lover of the gopis who eagerly enjoy pastimes in Vrindavan forest, and whose complexion is as splendid as the great sapphire, eternally enjoy transcendental pastimes in our hearts. So while Ishwara Puri was residing for several months in Navadvip before moving on to the next place, he resided at the home of Gopinath Acharya. This is a verse from Chaitanya Bhagavat. Ishwara Puri stayed for a few months, doesn't say the number, in Navadvip at the home of Sri Gopinath Acharya in Vidyanagara. Vidyanagara is a place you can visit today. It's the place where Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya resided before he shifted to Jagannath Puri, and his brother, they had his little school there, and Gopinath Acharya was their brother-in-law. So Gopinath Acharya lived in the same Vidyanagara, and Ishwara Puri stayed there. He was an intimate associate of Gopinath Acharya, who was also a great devotee. When Ishwara Puri, after meeting Mahaprabhu, then Nimai Pandit, asked him for some service. This is one of the sequential steps in Nimai becoming his disciple in Lila, some service. So the service he requested is, it's understood everywhere in Navadvip that you're a great scholar in grammar. Would you do some little service? And we can spend some time together each day. According to Chaitanya Bhagavat, they would spend several hours each day for 3 months or several months. Hear Lilamrita, Krishna Lilamrita, and if you find some discrepancy in the writing that needs to be corrected, you please bring it to my attention so I can consider. And Nimai was very reluctant. You're a great personality, how can I do this? But here's what he said, according to Chaitanya Bhagavat. Anyone who finds any fault with a devotee's description of Krishna is a sinner. If a devotee writes a poem, no matter how poorly he does it, it will certainly contain his love for Krishna. A fool says Vishnaya, while a scholar knows the correct form is Vishnave. But Krishna accepts the sentiment in either case. If anyone sees a fault in this, the fault is his, for Krishna is pleased with anyone, anything, the pure devotee says. You too describe the Lord with words of love. So what arrogant person would dare criticize anything that you have written? And Ishwara Puri, hearing all this, insisted anyways. If everyone needs someone to proofread what they've written, and I may have overlooked something, so I request you, please. So according to Chaitanya Bhagavat, they spent an hour or two every day on the Krishna Lilamrita topic and other topics. So one day, as Lila, this is another important part, the submission of Nimai Pandit, even he was doing some service, he detected something that indicated to him needed to be corrected. The verb in this verse should be parasmai padi instead of atmane padi. So please consider. And Ishwara Puri considered. Some days later, he said, the verb that you have not accepted is atmane padi. I have accepted as atmane padi. Now, prior to this, Chaitanya Bhagavat is filled with examples, same Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was a super pundit. He would argue and argue and argue and argue and argue and debate and pick arguments. And so without going into the detail because of time, he never was defeated. And here he's accepting defeat without any word. And just simply at the word of Ishwara Puri, I've accepted this, so it stands. And he was doing his service without trying to prove himself as right, and his guru was not right. He didn't do that. After some time, Ishwara Puri left Navadvip, and after some time, it was according to Vedic tradition, Nimai Pandit's father had departed from this world, and he went to Gaya to perform the proper rituals for a departed family member. When he went to Gaya, he had a fever, something like Krishna's having a headache. He had a fever. And he was traveling to Gaya with his students. They checked this doctor, that doctor, the other doctor. Nothing worked to bring the fever down. Mahaprabhu said there's one thing to his students, there's one thing that will cure the fever, and that is water that has washed the feet of brahmanas. And if I drink that water, then my fever will stop. Now that's kind of unusual because these are his students and they're all brahmanas, but they're his students. But they accepted, and he accepted the water, but had washed their feet, and his fever broke and everything was nice. This is commented upon in Chaitanya Bhagavat as an important step, that is in his Diksha, and that is his submission to the importance of brahmanas. Even they were his students, they're brahmanas. And the painting that's here is up on top of the hill in Gaya. There's a footprint of Lord Vishnu. And when Nimai saw the footprint of Lord Vishnu, he swooned. He didn't faint, as he would sometimes do, but he was in great ecstasy seeing the footprint of Vishnu. I found this online. Here's a painting, a photograph of the very same footprint of Vishnu place. It's now, we don't know what it was when Mahaprabhu was there, but it's now inside a stanchion. And during certain times of the day, they do certain pujas, etc., etc. And after seeing the feet of Vishnu and entering into a swoon of ecstasy, seeing the feet of Vishnu, which is an important step in his preparing himself for Diksha, he was fasting all day long, going to various temples in Gaya and following the procedures and doing all the rituals, etc., etc., etc. And by the time, generally it is said that doing all those rituals takes several days. He did it all in one day. And at the end of the day, he went back to the little place where he was staying. And his plan was to cook and make an offering and then break the fast. Well, that was interrupted by Ishwara Puri's visit. It says, on the day that he had performed the Shraddha rituals, having fasted all day, returned to his room and began to cook. When Ishwara Puri came and placed his holy feet in Mahaprabhu's room, Mahaprabhu, with great satisfaction, personally served him the rice and vegetables that he had cooked himself. Now, Ishwara Puri said, no, this is cooked for you. And he said, no, please take, because you're to be honored. You're a great sannyasi. So because of that etiquette, he accepted. And then when it was all done, Nimai Pandit cooked for himself and offered to his Shalagram Shila. During that stay in Gaya, this is when mantra Diksha took place. Here's Ishwara Puri giving the mantra to Nimai Pandit. And this was his first initiation, because we're only going to speak of the sannyas initiation. And from that moment, after Diksha, he lost all interest in his academic studies, which was previously everything to him. Now we hear a little bit more about Ishwara Puri in terms of two of his disciples named Govinda and Kashishwara Pandit. Just before his departure, Ishwara Puri sent two of his disciples to go serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri. And when they arrived in Puri, reporting that they had come to render him service and that they were his godbrothers, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was perplexed, saying, this is not possible. It's not etiquette. It's against etiquette that I, or anyone who's a disciple, should accept direct service from a godbrother. But they've come, what should I do? So he discussed this with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. This is a painting of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya getting spiritual darshan of Mahaprabhu. He said, yes, what you've said is correct. It is against the etiquette. However, there's also the etiquette that whatever the Guru instructs should be accepted. And that takes precedent over this other cultural etiquette. And therefore you should accept their service. And Mahaprabhu accepted their service under the guidance or tutelage or explanation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And here we see a nice painting where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, living in Puri and staying in Gambhira, is associating with both Kashishwara Pandit. Govinda became his personal servant, very intimate service like that. And the last that we hear about Ishwara Puri, or the last I have to say, there's a deity. Here's a photograph of the deity of Ishwara Puri that is presiding, not just residing, but presiding at a temple in West Bengal. Hali Sahara, West Bengal. You can see in the background, there's the arm of Balaram and Jagannath, etc. But, so this is Ishwara Puri's Murti. And that's the first initiation topic. And then the second initiation topic takes place when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, now known as Nimai Pandit, having received Diksha from Ishwara Puri, he has lost interest in his academic studies. And so he began with his students teaching all the rules of grammar with names of Krishna only. And that very same system of grammar was picked up by Jiva Goswami, who wrote it in a book, Hari Namamrita Vyakarana, which is our Gurukuls use Jiva Goswami's writing, but taken from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in course of time, Mahaprabhu's, after his Diksha, he became so absorbed in Krishna Prema that it was like impossible for him to continue with his teaching. It's just simply Sanskrit grammar teaching. But the students were really attached to him as their teacher, so they continued to come, and they complained about Krishna's name, why all this Krishna's name thing with rules of grammar. And one time, it was the straw that broke Mahaprabhu's back. One student came when he was reciting something in a mood of the gopis' separation from Krishna. And a student heard this and said, why are you doing this? You should be reciting Vedanta Sutra and other things that elevated persons do, brahmanas do. Why are you doing this? And Mahaprabhu was very angry. Get out of here. I don't want to see you again. And at that time, Leela-wise, he decided to accept sannyas. He decided to accept sannyas externally so that those in Vedic culture who would never speak ill or would always offer respect to a sannyasi would benefit. But here, because he's entering deeply into the mood of the love of the residents of Vrindavan for Krishna, his students, worldly students, couldn't understand, and therefore were making offenses. And so to check that offense tendency, he decided to accept sannyas. He informed his mother, who was beside herself with grief. This is a painting where it's a little premature. It's showing he's holding his sannyas danda with a shaved head, and that's his wife, Vishnupriya, who's not going to hold his arm while he's holding his sannyas danda, but it's a Bengali artist meaning to show the mood of Mother Sachi, the mood of Vishnupriya, and the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his kamandalu and his sannyas danda. It's said in the Lila that very few people knew. One of those persons that knew was Mother Sachi. And on this very evening that he left, it was Makara Sankranti that he accepted the order of sannyas. In the middle of the night, he left home. But before he left in the middle of the night, very sweet, a gourd was growing on the rooftop of Haridas Thakur, who brought it to Mahaprabhu to have it cooked. He had Mother Sachi cook, and he took some soup from that gourd, and when everyone took rest in the middle of the night, he left. Now, it's different descriptions. It said when he left, Mother Sachi knew. She is his mother, and she knew his mood. She knew he was going to leave. And as he was leaving, she was crying and crying and crying, and he spoke some words to pacify her, and he left. Now here's another Bengali artist that shows something a little different. There's his nice spiffy bedroom, but he just lived in a little cottage. And after he left, poor Ishwara Puri, Lakshmi Priya felt great distress, great distress, great distress. She didn't feel abandoned, but she's a young woman without her beloved husband. The place where he decided to go was Katwa, and to get to Katwa from where his residence was, he had to cross a certain ghat. This is the name of that ghat, Nadia Ghat, celebrated place along the bank of the Ganges. And when he reached Katwa, here's another nice little illustration where on the right side is Keshava Bharati, and there's Mahaprabhu accepting his danda. He hasn't shaved yet. You see the barber behind him ready to shave him, but it's kind of too many things in one painting. And the three other personalities are the associates who were with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he accepted sannyas. So this place, Nadia Ghat, is where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu crossed River Ganga on his way to Katwa. He took sannyas at the end of January in the year 1510, just before his 25th birthday. So we know that Gaur Purnima comes in February. So just before he took sannyas. And the person from whom he accepted sannyas was Keshava Bharati, pictured here. Here's a little description from Gaura Deshapika, who's Keshava Bharati. Sandipani Muni, who formerly offered the sacred thread to Krishna and Balaram, later became Keshava Bharati. And then, according to some authoritative opinions, Keshava Bharati is an incarnation of Akrura. So the painting shows the madness of the associates of Mahaprabhu and the people who knew him, feeling so disturbed that he was going to take sannyas. There's a celebrated personality involved in all of this that's described in some detail. These are the persons who traveled with him to Katwa. 4, Gadadhar Pandit, Chandrasekhar Acharya, Mukunda Datta, and Nityananda Prabhu. Chandrasekhar was elder, but he was very experienced in rituals. So he did all the rituals. And the bottom of the painting, it shows Madhu the barber and the very celebrated descriptions. Madhu couldn't do it because Mahaprabhu had such beautiful hair, and he couldn't do it, and Lord Mahaprabhu and Nimai Pandit insisted. And so he finally did. It took him most of the day. His hand was shaking, etc., etc. There's the sacrificial fire. There's Keshava Bharati on our left and Mahaprabhu on our right. In Katwa, this is the place, this celebrated tree under which Madhu the barber cut his hair. And Madhu the barber was such a celebrated person, they made a samadhi for him right there in Katwa. And when it came time for the sannyas vows, a very interesting thing happened. Mahaprabhu said, now he was Nimai Pandit, but he asked Keshava Bharati, last night in a dream, I heard this mantra for sannyas. Is this a proper mantra? Is this the mantra you're going to give me? And he then whispered the mantra in the ear of Keshava Bharati, means he initiated him. And Keshava Bharati said, yes, this is the mantra I shall give you. Elsewhere it says, oh, you're so knowledgeable, you know the best of everything. This is the best possible mantra for sannyas. And that's the mantra that he received. Now, sometimes there's a question. The question goes like this. Nimai Pandit was a Vaishnav, and Keshava Bharati was a Shankaracharya sannyasi. Keshava Bharati, residing in Katwa, had that as his home base. And from Katwa, he had many followers. And Mahaprabhu went to Katwa to receive sannyas instead of, let's say, from Ishwarapuri or some other Vaishnav. So why? Why did Nimai Pandit seek sannyas from a Shankaracharya sannyasi, even while Ishwarapuri was still on the planet? So this is a question that comes up sometimes. Maybe it's come up in your mind sometimes. And I spent some time discussing and reading and contemplating and came up with the following 3 answers. Now, this one is taken directly from a Gaudiya Math website, but it makes sense. At that time, all over India, Mayavadi sannyas had greater recognition than Vaishnava sannyas. And Keshava Bharati was already situated in that post. Mahaprabhu took the garb of a sannyasi from him for his own purpose, namely to assist his preaching activity. So let's go do it again. In the world at that time, custom and culture was sannyas was very respected from the Shankara line. There's many places, there's 10 different names. Madhavendra Puri accepted sannyas from the Shankara line. Ishwara Puri accepted sannyas, doesn't say from whom, but one might assume, but Madhavendra Puri, so that's a Puri title, indicates a Shankara line. And Bharati is another of those names. So that was what they did, and there's a reason why Mahaprabhu did what he did. It's not the reason, but it's one of the reasons. That is, he wanted persons throughout the land to offer respect as a sannyasi, because that way they'll benefit. And if they offer disrespect, then that's going to be to their detriment or insufficient respect. So he accepted sannyas from Keshava Bharati because that was a convention at the time which would serve his mission or his preaching activity. That's one explanation. There's another explanation that comes from the Upanishads, and this statement from the Upanishads says, whenever he becomes detached, he may immediately take sannyas. In this Jabala Upanishad, it's a section where it describes the 4 ashrams. And the section that describes the sannyas ashram, it says, whenever, like, tad ahar eva pravrajet. Vrajet means to go. Vraja means to go. Vrajet, whenever there's viraj, yet, whenever there's detachment, then one should go to take sannyas. It's auspicious. That is, when the inspiration for sannyas awakened, Ishwara Puri's whereabouts were unknown due to his constant travel, and Keshava Bharati was based nearby in Katwa. Thus, Nimai Pandit went there immediately. Immediately has this connotation. Prabhupada would refer to this sometimes. Shubhasya shigram, which means that which is auspicious should be done at once. So when the urge for his mission was there to take sannyas, it was to be done at once. Katwa was close by. Who knows where Ishwara Puri is? Who knows how long it would take just to even find him? And aside from this first reason, this is the second reason. It was proximate, and it was the cultural thing to do, and during his particular time. In other words, in ISKCON, we have this idea that someone's going to take sannyas, they would naturally accept sannyas from their Diksha Guru, from their first initiation, second initiation Guru. That is the culture within ISKCON. And the culture at the time was not that same culture. It was what's being described here. And a third reason was the mercy that he wanted to give to everybody, and even particularly the mercy that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to give to Mayavadis. So Keshava Bharati was a Mayavadi, or at least by outward appearance, but he delivered him by his taking sannyas. We heard he gave him the sannyas mantra, and then he received it back from Keshava Bharati. Here's a description in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission was to infuse bhakti rasa into the hearts of everyone, even the Mayavadis, whenever possible. This was achieved during the sannyas diksha with Keshava Bharati. So that sannyas name was given. Sri Krishna Chaitanya means that you will arouse Krishna consciousness throughout the entire world. You have descended to make all people Krishna conscious. Now this is in ISKCON Krishna conscious language, but it's translated that way. So the most suitable name for you cannot be but Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And after uttering the name, he was in ecstasy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also in ecstasy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was given the name, he was given the cloth, and he then embraced Keshava Bharati. And after embracing Keshava Bharati, they both began to dance, chanting the name of Krishna. As Keshava Bharati joined in Sankirtan, he was immediately converted along with all of his followers. So Keshava Bharati was accepted as his sannyas guru to help him become a Vaishnava. As mentioned, this event took place on Makara Sankranti, and the place in Katwa, this is the Diksha procedure, and Mahaprabhu's on the left receiving his Danda and Kamandalu from Keshava Bharati. And there's the ecstasy of the persons in the audience. If you someday visit Katwa, this is the deity that you'll see, very tall deity of Mahaprabhu. And interesting, in a neem deity of pale complexion is Krishna in his position of holding his flute. And I don't know the reason why he is in pale instead of dark blue complexion. After his sannyas, he wanted to go to Vrindavan, and by the tricks of Nityananda, instead of going to Vrindavan, he went to Shantipur. Here's a painting where he was in Shantipur with a shaved head as a new sannyasi, giving ecstatic teachings to his followers. An arrangement was made by Advaita Acharya to bring Mother Sachi. Here's Mother Sachi embracing her son. He stayed for some days so she could cook for him. And after some days, he's planning to go to Puri at her request instead of to Vrindavan. Now there is a description. There's not much found about this description, but here's a nice painting. Because of detachment of Vishnupriya, he gave her his shoes, which she then worshipped for the rest of her life. And there's Mother Sachi sitting on the porch. There's the devotees crying because he's going to be leaving Navadvip and not to be seen for a long time back in Navadvip. And there's Vishnupriya. It's said that Vishnupriya, receiving these shoes, she worshipped them as her life and soul for the rest of her life, along with the deity of Mahaprabhu that is said Mahaprabhu gave her as well, or arranged for her to receive. We'll see the photograph of that deity shortly. Who is Vishnupriya? According to Chaitanya Bhagavat, Bhaktisiddhanta explains, Vishnupriya is Bhushakti, and his previous wife, who died of separation, but he was gone in Bangladesh for some time, the Sri Shakti, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described as having residing in Navadvip. Bhaktisiddhanta says this is the third Nila Shakti or Durga. So these are three internal or spiritual potencies of the personality of Godhead: Bhu Shakti, Sri Shakti, and Nila Shakti. We see the shoes she's holding to her chest. Here's the shoes today, maybe 2 weeks ago. This was a photograph given to me by Shamsundar, who personally went to see the deity of Vishnupriya. It is said this is the deity of Mahaprabhu that Vishnupriya worshipped for the rest of her life. It is said, we can't verify, that the name for the deity was taken from the neem tree under which Nimai Pandit was born, and then given by Mahaprabhu to her. It doesn't say he handed it to her, just his gift to her. And a certain mudra of his hands, very merciful. It is said she worshipped this deity for 80 years because she was young when she was married, still a teenager. And she lived for that period of time. And it is said that she merged into the deity. If you look very closely at the deity, you'll notice two things. The deity is dressed in a sari. Because the second thing, look closely and you can see hanging from the nose of the deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a nose ring. It is said that nose ring is Vishnupriya's nose ring. And therefore, to this day, several days of the week, he's dressed as a sannyasi, not as a grahasta with hair. And other days of the week, he's dressed as a gopi or a female. And that's a little description of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's two initiations. His mantra diksha from Ishwara Puri and his sannyas diksha from Keshava Bharati, and his dealings with some of the devotees along the way. So at least those of you in Singapore, I sent this early morning your time, because now it's evening your time. I sent it to Madan Mohan, and he said he was going to forward it to all of you. So maybe you've already seen all this. And if not, you can have a copy. I request you don't circulate it beyond, because I'll, from time to time, I'll in the future be speaking on these activities. So you're not at liberty to circulate it beyond yourselves. Thank you. So let's see, it's now 1 hour. It's now 9:30. Let's see if there's some comments or discussion from anybody. I think if you want to say something, you can do that procedure of you raise your hand. There, I see a hand. Anantacharya, you've unmuted yourself. Good. So you can please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Thank you for the nice class. One question I have, which is the second initiation of Mahaprabhu from Keshava Bharati. You said Madhavendra Puri followed by Ishwara Puri took sannyas initiation from Adi Shankaracharya's line, and three sort of reasons from your studying of this topic. So the first reason, Maharaj, while accepting sannyas, they would accept to follow some vows and principles for the rest of the life. And from my little understanding of the Mayavadi philosophy, their vows and principles are sort of very opposite to the devotional practices and etc. Very much into jnana and vairagya and stuff like that. So my question, Maharaj, is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accept to take those vows to follow them? Because it's very contrary to what he propounded afterwards in terms of vows and principles.
You're presuming many things. And let's go back and hit the edit button. What he received as what Madhavendra Puri received, as what Ishwar Puri received, was the mantra. And what they didn't, there's no mention of procedures and teachings and this is and that's and the other thing that they may have, that others in the Adi Shankara line might have taken up as a sannyasi, but vows of celibacy and not associating with women and those kinds of standards. But you're presuming things that it causes the conflict, and the presuming things that causes the conflict is your presumption. I know nothing about how they were instructed to do this and do that and believe this and follow that and the other thing.
Okay, Maharaj.
Mantra.
Hare Krishna.
Hey, Sundar Gaura.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Dandas Pranam. Thank you so much for wonderful class, Maharaj. Maharaj, one question, right? So, like Madhavacharya appeared in 11th century, right? And he supported and propagated Dvaita philosophy of Vedanta, right? And then he established temples in Udupi and other places, right? Madhavacharya. And then later in 14th century, Madhavendra Puri appeared, and then he's considered that he has sowed the seeds of devotional service. So between like Madhavacharya and Madhavendra Puri, right? So Madhavacharya also like started like the temples, building temples and other things. So how to understand like the devotional service before Madhavendra Puri appearance?
How we understand that devotional service is in the same mood, like Aishwarya mood of Madhvacharya. And the Madhurya mood was awakened, the seed that was awakened in Madhavendra Puri, that was the shift. Vishnu Tattva, worship of the personality of Godhead in its various forms, is part of Madhvacharya's practice and teaching and his mats. Followers did the same in the Aishwarya mood, and then the shift was in mood or bhav to Brajaprem and Madhurya bhav.
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, Madan Mohan, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my most humble obeisances. Maharaj, I had one question regarding that the dream you're Madhavendra Puri saw in the dream about Krishna telling him about the deities. So like in the present context, many people claim that they see it in the dream. So how to know it is bona fide or not?
Nice question. The symptoms of elevated bhakti is the main criterion. Prabhupada's way of saying is, you understand a thing by its characteristic or its lakshana. So Madhavendra Puri and other such personalities who have the lakshana or the characteristic of prema bhakti, then we take the dreams that they have far more seriously. Let's go the other direction. There was a devotee I won't mention his name, but there was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada who had many dreams. And in his dreams, Prabhupada would come and issue instructions in his dream. And then he would say, Prabhupada instructed this, Prabhupada instructed that. Fortunately, it happened during Prabhupada's lifetime, so he could chop it down. And Prabhupada said, we don't take seriously such dreams. You can take it that Krishna's giving some mercy, or my spiritual master is giving some mercy, but we don't take it literally as an instruction. Now, so your question is, when do you take it as an instruction, and when do you take it as, what Prabhupada described as some indication of some mercy is coming to you? Not that you accept some instruction or something. So the answer, my answer is, when there's the characteristics of pure devotion across the board, then we take such an experience differently. And the other is, that's nice. You've got some mercy came to you, that's nice. So then we need to know what the characteristics of pure devotional service are. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else out there would like to have some discussion? Paramananda, you raise your hand.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful class. I feel very blessed to have this opportunity to hear from you and ask this question. Maharaj, the pastime or the katha of Ishwara Puri, Srila Ishwara Puri's wonderful service of at the end of Madhavendra Puri's life, of taking care of him, seems like a very special service, Maharaj, to take care of one spiritual master like that intimately. What is the lesson for us from that, and how does one receive that service?
It's not just that particular service, it's the mood. It's not everything boils down to when one becomes incapacitated, and then there's the doorway. That would be a mistake. So the entrance into such a service is the mood. Like, let's say Srila Prabhupada was served in such a loving way by many persons before he was incapacitated. And such persons were the recipients of his mercy because of the mood of service with which they rendered service unto him. And you can name some names, but that's not the essence. The essence isn't. It's nice. Glorification of such devotees is very nice, but it's not. My important point in the response is, it's not just dependent upon the circumstance of the departure of the spiritual master. Let's just say, Kadamba Kanana Swami recently left, and there were devotees that were in Vrindavan with him in the days leading up to his departure. What about those devotees that weren't in Vrindavan leading up to his departure? Are they left out? Or all the services, say it the other way, all the services that they did in that mood as if it was his departure, or if they were serving him during his departure, is that diminished because it wasn't his departure? So obviously the answer is no. That's not what's the indication. That the mood is accessible when it's the mood. Who's qualified? Everyone's qualified, eligible at least. That's it.
Thank you very much.
You hear a crying child in the background because there's a crying child in the background. He's a noisemaker, that guy. Okay. Sridhar, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj. Please accept our humble obeisances. Maharaj, I have this question. You were mentioning Keshava Bharati is incarnation of Sandipani Muni, also incarnation of Akrura, if I heard it correctly. So I find it a little confusing for me to understand how two different personalities come as one person in the pastimes here.
The standard response to this very common question is quite simple. And it goes like this. Exalted personalities, perfected personalities, have capacity to invest angsas of themselves in others. So it's not like there's two souls inside one body. Rather, there's an angsa, or the bhava, or the ecstasy, the personal nature that's expanded from the perfected soul. And that's how it happens. Now, it's a philosophical explanation. There's no technology explanation of how that happens. But that's the philosophical explanation. So it's not, it's become a perfected soul, and you can, be present in the life of somebody. That's the idea. In multiple such moods of love in the perfectional stage can be received by a merciful Vaishnava, or from a merciful Vaishnava. And then that's carried in the course of one's service. That's the standard explanation for this.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, so when it is said that Lord Brahma comes as Haridas Thakur, it is the Amsa of Lord Brahma who takes birth as Lord Haridas Thakur.
That's a little different. I mean, it's similar, but it's different. Brahma had a service in Krishna's pastimes. We can go back and say, which Brahma? Because there's so many universes and so many Brahmas and so forth. That's a place that someone who really wants to know could go. So Brahma is a jiva, and he's empowered with a certain service. And so your question is are we to understand it's an angsa of that Brahma? Well, because Brahma lasts, for example, he lasts for the duration of the universe. How else could it be? Because he didn't stop being Brahma when Haridas Thakur came. And it's not like there was his soul split into two. There's no such thing. So something like an angsa of Brahma, but then there are other explanations of who is Prahlad Maharaj, and same type of thing. So the jiva that became Haridas Thakur is carrying the mood of bhakti like Brahma has towards the personality of Godhead, or thus an angsa of Brahma. That it's not the analysis of how does all of that take place is not presented. Just what I repeated is what's being presented, and more than that, I can't speak on it. Okay, Padma. Can't hear you. I have to unmute. Now I can hear you, but there we go. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept our humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful lecture. Just wanted to clarify when you said Vishnu Priya is the
Bhu Shakti.
Bhu Shakti. Yeah, Bhu Shakti, and Lakshmi Priya is Kriya Shakti. So just
Shri
wanted
Shakti.
to just wanted to understand. Can you help us elaborate on how do we take it as Bhu Shakti? What exactly is that?
Have you visited Sri Ranga before? No?
No.
Have you visited any Sri Vaishnava temple?
Yeah, Tirupati I have visited.
Okay. And so in it, the main deity has before the main deity an Utsav Murti. And on either side of the Utsav Murti are Sri Shakti and Bhu Shakti.
Okay.
Narayana has these three potencies. Two of them are in Murti forms.
Okay.
Sri Shakti, Bhu Shakti.
Okay.
And Nila Shakti is the third commonly expressed, as it's in scripture, is in Vaishnava scriptures. Nila Shakti, also sometimes identified as Lila Shakti, is the third. So Vishnu Priya and Lakshmi Priya are those Sri and Bhu Shaktis in the Lila of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. And then the Leela Shakti, you said is Durga. Navadvip is like Leela Shakti or Durga. Is that same as the Vishnu Maya or
Yes. Yes.
Maya?
Yes. Now, the nomenclature doesn't just have strict buckets. You put the nomenclature in this bucket, and that's it. It's not like that. But the nomenclature is used in different ways in different times according to circumstance. And you have to be a little flexible and don't be bucket oriented. Because it's not like that.
Thank
Okay.
you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Okay, looks like, someone else with their hand up. I see two someones. Vangshi.
Yes, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances into your lotus feet. Maharaj, I have one small question. It's definitely my not understanding. I'm not able to understand. Like when you said one of the reason why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took initiation is
took sannyas initiation from Bharati.
Is for people to take him seriously. I mean, is it is there any other is it the only reason? Like for me,
no, there's three reasons, but it's a prominent reason. No, let's just go back. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this world to deliver Krishna Bhakti or Braja Bhakti, and there was a period of time when his own students were criticizing him because they didn't understand Braja Bhakti. And so he knew that culturally, A and B. Culturally, persons will not speak like that to someone who's in the sannyas order because they respect, culture today and then are different. But practically universally, persons would respect someone who's in the sannyas ashram. And so he would get respect instead of criticism, which would be more beneficial and less detrimental for others. And of the sannyas order, the Shankaracharya sannyas order was most respected compared to, at that time, Vaishnava sannyas. And so he did what was culturally the norm because he had a mission to bring people to Krishna Bhakti or Braja Bhakti. So he did what he did for his mission purposes. That's one of the reasons. No, this is an external reason, but it's one of the reasons. Clear?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Okay. And there's someone else I saw a hand up. Take your hand down, Mangsi. There we go. Are we done? Looks like we're done. Madan Mohan, you want to close? Uh-oh. Krishna Mohini, you want to say something, yes? Come up closer to the microphone. Your voice is not as loud as his.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Oh, that's good. We lost your face though. Go ahead.
Guru Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. After the very, very nice presentations as well, the slides, just staying very far, we could take darshan of the different places of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet, which he gave to Lakshmi Priya, Vishnu Priya, and all that. So it's just, my heart, somewhere in the corner of my heart, I feel that we also would like to go to those places and with your association someday or the other, and to see personally the different pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Mayapur.
So this is just some appreciation. It's not a question, yes?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, in response to what you just said, it looks like our next Yatra 2024 is going to be Mayapur. And there's a reason for it, but that looks like that's what it's going to be. So you can look forward to more Gaura Lila 2024. Let's see. But that looks like what's going to happen. Okay, thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. Srila Rumpa Swami Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.